The other thing that I'm hearing a lot when I go into organisations and you talk about the sort of arc of change is that they're just exhausted. They're exhausted with change, and that in some instances it feels like it's change for change's sake. And we hear people talk about obviously the new sort of project management principle being agile, and agile just means that it just seems to be changing constantly.
Yeah, non-stop. Yeah.
Yeah, or it's just an excuse for not having completed it. Well, it's agile, we're just changing. So
Yeah.
it's like, how, if you're a manager in an organization, how do you, if you had some top tips for people to deal with those messy middles, how do you manage change?
We'll break it down into 5 stages. So the 5 stages are nothing new. Like, they come from the work of a guy called Joseph Campbell, and Joseph Campbell is an anthropologist who, and what he did was he went and studied all the work, like basically all the world's cultures. From an anthropological perspective, and listened to the kind of stories and the narratives that each of these cultures tell each other. And what he found was there was a pattern that was consistent across all of them. So it's part of our human psychology about how we do this. So there's 5 stages to change. Now, what's interesting is, and again, you can make this fun in organisations, because one of Joseph Campbell's students was George Lucas. So if you're familiar with any of the Star Wars films, they follow Joseph Campbell's model of how he tells a story. So you start with the dream stage. You start with the idea of what is it we want, and you get people sort of getting excited and enthused about what the world could look like. You then have the leap stage, where you have to get people to make some degree of commitment to make this dream a reality. So it goes from just the abstract idea to something really tangible, and this is where the trademark behaviours come in. We identify them, then we have to start to demonstrate it. The messy middle is what we call the fight stage. This is the bit where you'll meet all the ogres on the way. This is all the problems, the setbacks, the difficulties. You'll meet them at that stage. So again, if you can sit down and you can have a bit of fun with this in organisations and say, let's identify some of the problems and let's come up with solutions long before we're ever going to have to confront them. The stage after that is progress, where you will start to see signs of the culture beginning to emerge, or whatever the changes you want beginning to emerge. So let's have a look at how do we handle those moments of success when they happen, and how do we celebrate them. And then the fifth bit is where you will get to the arrival stage, where you start to see that this looks like it's become embedded. And when you've got those 5 stages, one, it allows people to navigate. So it's like you're not walking in the dark. You've got a map to understand where you are. But secondly, you should stop at each stage and acknowledge them, whether this you have a resting point, or you have a bit where we celebrate, or we come together. But when you have that map, it allows you to get people to understand where they are on it, rather than get disillusioned. Because we hit a bit that's called in psychology Cantor's law. The messy middle is tied in with this. Cantor's law, it's named after a lady called Ross Cantor. And Cantor's law says when you look at any change program, in the middle of it, it will look or feel like a failure. And the reason is because you get too far in to go back, but you're not far enough to see progress towards the end. And it's that stage where disillusionment sets in. So when you understand what the stages are, you can help to overcome Cantor's law by getting people to stop along the way and just simply navigate the way through it. But again, that takes a lot of thought and preparation before you start the change. Right? I'll often say to audiences, Kirsty, I'll say the worst time to go food shopping is when you're hungry. Because when you walk in that supermarket and you're hungry, you can't think what you're going to eat for your dinner for the next week, because you're hungry and you're just interested in getting through the next 5 minutes. So your buying patterns become short-term and reactive. Yeah. And it's the same in change. You can't make change happen when you're in the middle of change, because when you're stuck in the middle of it, you can't get your head out of the day-to-day challenges to see where you're going. You need to do all this before you start the change.